We're going on a road trip.
Oh, finally.
Okay, we are never doing an EV road trip again. Hey everyone, it's Charlotte from the Kia Hyundai channel, and today I'm talking about how I took my family on a 1,900-kilometer road trip from Brantford, Ontario to Lynchburg, Virginia, and I did it in the 2024 Kia EV9. Now, this video is primarily going to be focusing on what it's like to go on a road trip in an electric vehicle, what the infrastructure is like, tips, tricks, and some helpful apps that I use, and it's less so going to be focusing on the EV9 itself. Now, I think that this vehicle is incredible. I think it's incredibly comfortable, and I'll make sure that I have all the specs for this vehicle linked in the description. That way you guys can cross-compare if you want. And I'm also going to put our video doing a full and complete walkthrough on this vehicle, specifically the GT line trim, in the description as well. Now, I've done this drive multiple times, and most recently I did the Brantford to Lynchburg drive in the Kia Telluride, and it took me about 11.5 hours, and that was last year. So this is a drive that I'm pretty familiar with. I know how long it should take, I know where to stop, but I'd never done an electric vehicle before, so that's why I wanted to try it out. Now, when it came to actually driving down there, typically I do it in one go, do the full drive in one day, but when it came to actually going down there, I did decide to split it up into 2 days, most notably to make it easier for my daughter. She is 1.5, and so I wanted to make sure she wasn't spending too much time cooped up in her car seat, but also because I wanted to leave Thursday evening after work and arrive early on Friday. That way I could maximize the amount of time I was spending with my sister, who lives down there. So that is kind of why we chose to do that. And then for the route back is we actually decided that we were going to do the full drive on Monday coming home. But without further ado, let's pack up, say goodbye to the dogs, hit the road. All right, so we're doing our first check-in, and we've honestly been on the road for probably 2 hours, and the bulk of that was sitting in traffic in Canada and then sitting at the border. So we've just crossed into Buffalo. So I'm gonna drive for probably about an hour, and then we're gonna get something to eat, maybe charge up a little bit more, just get a little bit more charge before we head to Altoona, which is where we are staying tonight. How has the drive been so far?
Oh, well, minus the crying baby, it's been okay. I hurt my back at work today. I was not looking forward to this 10-hour drive, but thankfully there's this fancy massage button on these seats that's definitely saving my life.
So the ergo motion seat and the heated seat combination is a big win for the blue collar boys. So from Buffalo, we drove about another hour and a half to find our first charger, and that's also when we encountered our first set of problems. Good morning, everyone. It is just before 8 a.m. We've been on the road for about 2 hours this morning, and this is our second check-in. So you're probably wondering, Charlotte, why didn't you give us a check-in last night when you stopped? And that is because I had one crazy night. So basically, we were trying to charge up and head to Altoona, which is about the halfway point. We didn't make it that far. I'm going to be honest with you guys about that. We didn't make it that far because we went to fast charge. None of the chargers would accept payment. I tried Visa, I tried Visa Debit, I tried MasterCard, I tried Amex, I tried Apple Pay, I tried swiping, I tried tapping, I tried chip in. Nothing would take our payment. And it was so frustrating because the chargers worked. I knew that they worked, but they literally just would not let me pay. So I'm not sure if it's like my cards, because it's a Canadian card and we're in the US, but nothing was working. So from there, we tried to go to a Tesla supercharger. Guess what? You guessed it, it didn't work either. So after that point, it was close to midnight. Jackson and I had both worked all day. Evie had woken up. She was crying, screaming in the back seat, and I was at my wit's end. So we ended up getting a hotel for the night, which we were already planning on staying the night anyways. So we just canceled a reservation in Altoona, moved it to here, and we were able to use their level 2 charger last night, and we charged to about 60% this morning. It was only plugged in for maybe 5 hours, so it went from 20% to 60%, and now we've been on the road for 2 hours. We've used 30%, so we are down to 30% charge, and now we are charging at a Electrify America fast charger. But when we went to the hotel last night, Evie was wired, like she was wide awake because she had been sleeping in the car, and she screamed until about 2:30 in the morning. And then I got up at 5, and then I drove 2 hours. So if you're wondering if I'm doing well, please check up on me. Alrighty. So there we go. We're gonna stop charging. We're at 90%. We were here for just over half an hour, so good amount of time. Definitely didn't need to be here that long. We definitely could have only done like 15 minutes. Here is the final cost and everything like that. 23 bucks, and gave us just amount of time to go and kind of, I don't know, stretch our legs and stuff like that. Overall, I'm not mad at it. Now, once we were on the road again, we drove another 3.5 hours to Stevens City in Virginia, and we stopped with no problems at that fast charger. The only thing I will note is it was absolutely downpouring, even worse than what is shown on the screen. And that wasn't quite ideal for charging. Now, usually when you're charging your electric vehicle, you are waiting in your car, you're in some type of infrastructure, but having no covering above you and trying to plug the vehicle in, that was a little frustrating, and we did get absolutely soaked trying to do it. Here you can see our total charge time and also the total cost. And after that last charge that we did in Stevens City, we drove about 2.5 hours, and that brought us into Lynchburg, Virginia, and we didn't have to stop anymore for charging, and we actually arrived with a decent amount of charge to our hotel. And shout out to Marriott, because not only did they advertise the fact that they had a level 2 charger at their hotels, which many did not, but they also allowed you to use it for free. So at our hotel, we actually had free level 2 charging, and that was pretty sweet, I must say. So it was estimated that we'd arrive with about 10% state of charge. We're actually at 23, so we did a lot better than initially anticipated, and that was for about a 2-hour and 40-minute stretch. Overall, we had a pretty great weekend, and then it was time to head home. And this is when we decided that we were going to try to do the whole 931 kilometers in one go and hopefully get it under 12 hours. Now, when I had mapped out the route, it did say that it should take us under 12 hours, probably around 11 hours, 45 minutes. And that wasn't necessarily the case. Good morning, we're heading home. So today we're trying to drive pretty much the whole way from Lynchburg back to Brantford, and we will see how this goes. Jackson just plugged in the car. We're here at Electrify America. It's in a Walmart parking lot, so lots of stuff around, and we didn't actually need to charge. We still have 117 miles of charge left. We're at about 44%. So just when we're going through a better route planner, they said stop here, use the fast charger, and then we'll continue on our way. So I mapped it out. We should only need to stop maybe 3 times for charging, which I think is pretty good, especially with these fast chargers. So this one was actually free. We're gonna unplug because we only need to stop for like 10 minutes is what was recommended. So now we're gonna hit the road again. Now, from Woodstock, we were actually planning on driving the 2.5 hours roughly to Bedford, Pennsylvania, and that was about 184 kilometers away to hit our next supercharger before we continued on. Unfortunately, at this charger is where we encountered our next set of issues. So, thank you, Evie. Something fun that we've run into is this. So we put in a fast charger and they are completely gated off. Yeah. They look brand new, so maybe they're just not operational, but they're showing that they are. So that's something that you can definitely run into. There is one not very far. It's like 6 miles. So we just went and plugged it into the in-house navigation. We just searched for it on the in-house nav, and we're heading there now. So hopefully that should work. We're still at 30%, so we have a decent amount of range. We're doing pretty good. Like when we hit this destination in Bedford, this is really where the wheels fell off. No, I don't mean literally, but I do definitely mean figuratively, because we were routed then to a level 2 charger, which wasn't helpful. It wasn't going to give us the charge that we needed, and obviously it was going to, take up a lot of time. So aside from the close charger, there was no other DC fast charging option in our immediate charge radius. So we were forced to hop from one level 2 charger to the next. So the first one that we stopped in was at a beautiful, I will say it was a beautiful state park. It was gorgeous, and it only had the level 2 charger, like I said. So from there, we decided to go and hop over to the one in Breezewood, which was a Rivian charger. And although they advertised it, the fast chargers were not open to all makes and models of vehicles, but they did have a level 2 charger that was available for us to use. So we stopped there for, honestly, probably 2 hours, either just Googling what to do, trying to get a little bit of charge, and obviously letting Evie blow off some steam. So after we got a little bit more charge, we knew that there was no fast chargers in our immediate radius, and we were starting to feel the pressure. And that is when we were forced to actually backtrack another half an hour. So we had already kind of backtracked a bit from Bedford, and we had to drive to Hancock, Maryland. Can you guess where we are and what we're doing? We're in Hancock, Maryland. We don't know why. We're on a nature walk. No, we do know why. And basically we had so much problems with finding a actual fast charger. This was the closest one, so we actually had to backtrack about half an hour, and now we're waiting for it to charge. It's still gonna take a little bit of a while before we can get to the one in Dubois. I think it's Dubois. So we still have to all drive through the whole state of Pennsylvania, get to our next charger, and hopefully from there, eventually cross the border and make it home. So right now, we're on a nature walk. So I think it's safe to say we are never doing an EV road trip again, at least while she's this age. And this whole ordeal, you know, between the first fast charger not working and finally finished up charging in Hancock, Maryland, it took us over 6 hours. Yeah. So we stayed at the ChargePoint fast charger in Hancock for about an hour, and from there it took us from under 15% to about 83% in about an hour. And then from there, we decided to drive the 3 hours to Dubois, where we were gonna hit that Electrify America charger that we had already been to and we knew was working. And we're back at the Electrify America charger that we have already been to, so that's good because we knew that this one worked and we had a little bit more confidence in it after all of the mishaps that we had, and oh my gosh, it's just been crazy. I will say, I was thinking about it and I'm like, okay, obviously we've taken a huge detour and it's been a little bit of a hot mess, but at least I'm doing my favorite thing, which is spending time with my family. So even if I was definitely getting annoyed, but then I'm like, well, I have my husband and my daughter trapped in a car with me for the next couple hours. What else am I gonna get this opportunity? So I'm trying to look on the bright side, even though I'm definitely ready to get home. After that fast charger in Pennsylvania, we finally drove to Buffalo and we charged up there for a little bit. We probably didn't need to, but we just wanted to make sure we had excess for crossing the border and then also bring the vehicle back to the dealership the next day. So we drove for another hour and 45 minutes, or about 146 kilometers. So we're at our last charge of the day. So we're in Buffalo, New York. We're 38%. And I just wanted to get a little bit more charge before we cross over the border. We probably could have made it, but I didn't really want to risk it, especially after all I've been through today. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's just stop here. We'll get a snack and then we can continue. So it's fine. So last Electrify America charger of the trip and then back to home, thankfully. After leaving that last charger, we finally made it through the border, crossed without any problems, and finally made it home. So now I really want to break down some of the pros and cons of driving an electric vehicle. So let's start on a positive note and let's start with the pros. So first of all, it was actually pretty easy to find a DC fast charger, whether it be a 150 kilowatt hour or a ultra fast with the 350 kilowatt hour chargers, which gave you that charge in 24 minutes. And honestly, those were in pretty decent supply. So that was pretty good to use, and charge times, honestly, they were not as long as you would be expecting, especially with those fast chargers. And I found that utilizing the fast chargers often gave us enough time just to stretch our legs, get something to eat, allow Evie to run off some steam, get some energy out, and honestly, it was pretty good, especially because it's not like you're waiting to charge to 100% or 80% the whole time. You just want to give enough juice to actually get you routed to your next charger. All of the chargers were close to amenities like Walmart, restaurants, a natural park, nature walks, stuff like that. So there was stuff to do while you were waiting for your vehicle to charge if you were doing it a little bit slower too. And personally, I actually did like the stopping. I found that it worked, especially doing this road trip with a young kid. And also for myself, it made it easier to be like, okay, now we just have to drive 2 hours, then we get a break, 3 hours, then we get a break, and stuff like that. I liked doing it in legs per se. The vehicle, like I said, also incredibly comfortable. I have no complaints when it comes to the EV9. This vehicle was phenomenal to do this road trip in, and I would absolutely drive this as a daily vehicle if I could. And also, the overall cost of charging was relatively affordable. So for the Telluride, it cost me, $60, over $60 probably in gas every time I fill up. This cost me $60 total to drive from Brantford to Virginia. So I spent $60 in charging. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. You can't argue with a figure like that. It is relatively affordable. So there actually were a decent amount of pros when it came to driving an electric vehicle. And honestly, it surprised me in the fact that the more that I drove it and the more that I used these DC fast chargers, is I found that my range anxiety did decrease. So I wasn't necessarily worried about it. I knew that we could find a charger and get the range that we needed. I will say one of the cons is, what do you do when that goes wrong? What do you do when exactly what happened to me is you get to a charger, but it's not working. You're not actually able to use it how do you plan for that? And that is because there wasn't necessarily a fast charger close to me. So your option is going to have to be a level 2 charger instead of utilizing the DC fast charger. So my perspective on it is when you are doing a road trip, it's either you're paying in gas or you're paying in time. Obviously, when you're driving a gas vehicle, you are paying a lot more and you're paying for the convenience of being able to fill up right away. With electric vehicles, you're not necessarily paying as much, but you are definitely paying in your time. And sometimes you have to weigh it out to see if it's worth it or not, because I was quickly getting to the point where that 6-hour delay with a 1-year-old crying in the car, it was not worth it. Even though the way down we didn't really have a lot of problems and it was a pretty smooth experience overall. So that is one thing, is even if you do plan your route out, is what do you do when something goes awry and are you prepared to pay in time? So that is something I would. And then also different apps, is I find that you definitely need a bunch of different apps. Obviously I was using a better route planner, I was using PlugShare, and then depending on what charging station I was using, whether Electrify America or ChargePoint, I found that I had to download the apps for that too to make it an easier experience, but sometimes you can get away without doing that. So I want to share a little bit about some of the helpful tools that I used, and the first one is going to be a better route planner. Now there is a free and premium version of this app available. I was personally just using the free one, and I really like this because it basically plans your route for you, utilizing only fast chargers. And I also like this app because you could put in your originating state of charge, what state of charge you wanted to be at once you arrive to the charger, and it would lay out not only the directions to the charger for you, but also how long you need to stop there and the percentage you would arrive at, and then what percentage you could leave at. So overall, I found this to actually be a really great option, even just for the free version. The one thing I will say about it is it did include that Electrify America charger that was new, but wasn't open. So that was a little bit of a downside, but hopefully it's open by the time this video is up and you guys can all go and use it in Brantford, Pennsylvania. Some of the other apps I used was also going to be the Tesla app. I used that to see if there's any unlocked superchargers that I could use. And then also I was using PlugShare, and PlugShare I was more so using to cross-reference the chargers that a better route planner was showing me. That way I could see if they were actually active, if other people were using them to charge their vehicles. The other tool that I used was this boy. This is an NACS adapter, meaning it allowed me to use the different charge points that Tesla or Rivian were using. And also it allowed me to use the Tesla level 2 chargers at both the hotel and in that national park that I mentioned before. So I would definitely mention picking up one of these if you are going on a road trip, because I think there's a lot of value in having charging adaptability, being able to use the CCS port, but also the NACS port. It gives you so many more options, and overall I think that is something that is great to have when it comes to creating a plan and also a backup plan. So if you've made it to the end of this video, you are probably wondering, what are your final thoughts and would you do an EV road trip again? And I think I would do an EV road trip again, but I wouldn't necessarily do an EV road trip again, meaning I would definitely drive this vehicle for a long haul drive because it was super comfortable. And I actually really do think the infrastructure, specifically on the east coast of the US, was a lot better than I had anticipated, and that really helped with my range anxiety. And now after getting one under my belt, I feel a lot more confident about creating a backup plan, but I would definitely give myself a lot more time when it came to the actual travel of it all. I would say I would not bring my daughter on an EV road trip again because it just made it a little bit more stressful, and I felt so guilty, especially with the fact that we had a delay, meaning she had to sit in her car seat for so much longer. So I don't think that I would bring her at this young age on a road trip just in general again. So those are probably my final thoughts about this experience and doing an EV road trip. And if you haven't done one for yourself, I really consider doing it, especially if you are an EV owner, because it's just going to make you that much more confident in your product. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below what you'd like to see next, and also subscribe to the Kia Hyundai channel. Also, let me and Gabby know if you guys want us to do a dedicated video on some of the best practices we use to get the most out of our range when it comes to an EV. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!
Earplugs and a leave, baby.
What are they for?
Baby and back. Baby and back pain.